Welcome back to the Gertie Sports Effect YouTube channel. Before I get to the takeaways of tonight's game between the Boston Celtics and the Miami Heat, please remember to subscribe so you don't miss any takes that the local and national media just won't give to you. Please remember to ring that bell so you don't miss any heat. And please remember to spam me in the comments on anything that you agree with, disagree with, any takes that you believe I may have missed. Now to the game. So for my first takeaway, I'll start with a little negativity here. From the Boston Celtics perspective, the Celtics just aren't getting to the free throw line at the clip that they should be and need to in order to succeed come playoff time. I believe in this game they settled for too many jumpers, and for anyone who's played the game, jump shooting is streaky, and especially for a team like the Celtics with such streaky shooters, we really should be drawing fouls at the basket, getting to the free throw line, getting chippies at the line. And at this point, I believe the Miami Heat had shot 14 more free throws than the Boston Celtics did. In a game like tonight, the Celtics are able to escape because the Miami Heat just started shooting at the clip that they normally would be. So moving forward, I really do look for the Boston Celtics to not only get to the paint, but to be able to draw fouls at the paint. A la a Jimmy Butler, a la Goran Dragic, when he's going. For my second takeaway from tonight's game, I'll say that the Boston Celtics did a great job with matchups, identifying the mismatches on the floor, especially when they built the lead up to 17. They were targeting Goran Dragic, Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero on defense, getting the ball to Jason Tatum, to Jaylen Brown, and playing through those mismatches. If a double came around, that would obviously open up another opportunity for another player. But I think it's important that the Boston Celtics start to use an increase in the heightened IQ to win these games versus just pure athleticism or pure shooting. In this game, I believe from the jump to the very end of the game, they played and identified the mismatches across the floor. So that's definitely a positive I'll take away from tonight's game is you just see the growth and the mentality increasing from years past. Maybe that has something to do with Tristan Thompson and Jeff Teague signings. Or maybe it's just, one extra year of players, gaining more knowledge of the NBA and knowing how to beat opposing defenses and how to play smart. For takeaway number 3, tonight's game, I gotta say Marcus Smart, I have a love-hate relationship with him. This game, I would say, is a little bit more hate. Marcus Smart, I couldn't believe it, had fouled Tyler Hero on a full court heave. This is an NBA player, all defensive player who sometimes just lets his emotions, and his want to impact the game so much kind of hurt the team. And that showed, on that foul. There was no reason to foul in that situation. Luckily, Tyler Hero missed one free throw, so the impact wasn't as big as it would have been going into the half. But still, Marcus Smart is one of those players, and I'll get into Marcus Smart, in the upcoming takeaway here. But, Marcus Smart, defensively, he'll make amazing plays, but He'll also make boneheaded plays. It's not his first time making, a play like this. In last year against the Brooklyn Nets, against Karis LeVert, I remember him fouling Karis LeVert at the end of the game, and that led to the Boston Celtics and Brooklyn Nets going to overtime in that game, and I believe that the Nets pulled it out. But it was just unbelievable to me that Marcus Smart is able to make the smartest defensive plays when it matters, but then in a blink of an eye make a play that's totally out of character and totally hurts the team. For takeaway number 4, I gotta say Brad Stevens. Coach Brad is a good coach in my eyes. I know he gets a lot of detractors, a lot of people who don't believe he should be coaching. I think he's a solid coach. But the thing I can't tolerate and the thing I can't understand with Brad is his experimenting with lineups sometimes. This game, Carson Edwards got a nod, and those were minutes that rightfully should have been going to Peyton Pritchard. And for some reason, Brad, threw Carson out there. In my mind, I believe that the reason he did was to stop a Duncan Robinson. In Brad's weird brain, I think he equated Carson Edwards as a shooter, and playing with force, as Brad likes to say, with someone who'd be able to stick to a Duncan Robinson. But for what Carson Edwards is kind of bringing to the team offensively now, and considering the options that we do have to come off the bench, I can't fully grasp why Brad Stevens is continuing to roll out Carson Edwards. Maybe it's to keep him ready if something, were to ever happen to one of the top players. But in this game in particular, I didn't really understand the rationale with Carson Edwards getting the minutes that he did in this game. I know Brad still has a lot more experimenting to do this season. And I know that, some players are going to get minutes that watching the game wouldn't necessarily make sense to us. But I got to say, in this game in particular, it really just didn't make sense why Carson Edwards was in the game. So the next takeaway from tonight's game, Tatum and Brown. I'm so proud. I've been proud of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown since the series against the Miami Heat in 2017, where they just kind of took off without Kyrie and without Gordon Hayward. And in this game, I love the way that they played, with one another, especially at crunch time at the end of the game. I've always been a proponent of Jason Tatum getting the ball at the end of games, and keeping Jaylen Brown, a close second, if not, a 1B option to close out games. And it was good to see, Jason Tatum knock down the isolation 3, but then on the very next play, be able to run the offense at the end of the game, and find a Jaylen Brown who's close to him, on a driving kick. Those are plays that I believe for the Celtics to get to the finals and to win a championship, those have to be the signature plays at the end of games. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown really should be playing together and playing through one another at the end of games. Whether it's in the ideal world, Jason Tatum coming off a Jaylen Brown screen, and depending on the matchup, being able to either get a smaller player, onto a Jason Tatum, or to get a slower player onto a Jaylen Brown, and for Jaylen Brown to attack that. So in this game, to see them work hand in hand to close out a game, very pleased. And hopefully there's more to come between that tandem. And for the Celtics to get where they really need to be, it's got to be Jason, Jalen, and then Kemba, in my opinion. For the fifth takeaway from tonight's game, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a Miami Heat thing. And I have to give credit to the Miami Heat, to any of the Heat fans that are watching this. You know, the Miami Heat scare me more than any other team in the NBA. You know, their ability to go on runs very, very quickly. And that starts with the Tyler Hero, that starts with Duncan Robinson, you know, flying off screens, but being able to, you know, stop, see the rim, and knock down threes. You know, the Heat are a scary team. But I have to say, in tonight's game, I believe that the Celtics just had poor late game execution. You know, I believe it was like a 10-0 run for the last minute, you know, for the Miami Heat to get right back in the game and tie the game up. You know, and a play that's sticking out in my brain is the Jason Tatum foul on, I believe it was Duncan Robinson. And, you know, Jason Tatum just goes out and just a half-ass contest, goes up, fouls Duncan Robinson on the three. Of course, Duncan Robinson, being the great shooter that he is, knocks it down. You know, but plays like that, you know, are the reason why in one breath I might be able to say, you know, the Celtics are fully capable of making the finals if they play with one another. But then in the next breath, it's very easy to see the Celtics getting bounced again in the Eastern Conference Finals just because of these boneheaded, just no thought type of plays. You know, the late game execution, I don't know if it's just nerves, but at this point we've played in enough close games that we should be able to close out games better than we have been. But that's definitely something that, you know, as we move on in the year and as we play other, you know, good teams around the NBA, I'll be looking for the Celtics to close out these games that are within reach, you know, and to stop making, you know, these defensive mistakes, to put in a little bit more effort, you know, to get over the top. You know, Celtics, they'll play a strong, you know, 45, 46 minutes, but then the last 2 minutes, you know, all that will disappear because they just lose focus. Maybe they're already thinking about post game. So moving forward, you know, I will give credit to the Miami Heat because unlike any other team that I've seen the Celtics play, you know, they get hot very, very quickly and they put a lot of pressure on you, you know, and if you lose somebody on the screen, you know, that gives them confidence to knock down the next 2 or 3 shots. So props to the Miami Heat, but I do look forward to the Celtics scoring at a better clip than they have been. For my last takeaway, I gotta say Peyton Pritchard, 8 Mile, you know, P Rabbit, just thank you. You know, in a previous video, I had talked about, you know, apologizing to Peyton Pritchard because I didn't see his acclamation to the NBA going as well as it has. And just a level-headed player, you know, just a player that I look at to steady the ship, you know, who can come in, who's not going to be rattled. You know, in tonight's game, he wasn't necessarily hitting shots all over the floor, you know, like he did against the Raptors, but he still was able to come in at the very end of the game, you know, have an understanding that he wasn't going to be guarded, you know, on his rebound attempt, you know, and crash the boards and ultimately, you know, make the game-winning layup for us. So Peyton Pritchard, hats off to you. You know, I have my Miami Heat inspired hat on based on those jerseys that that we got to see tonight. But Peyton, keep playing the way you have been. I feel a lot more comfortable with Peyton Pritchard in the game, to be honest, than I do with Marcus Smart. At the end of late games, I think at important junctures of the season when we're playing against, the better teams in the NBA, I think sometimes it may make sense for us to swap a Marcus Smart in with the Peyton Pritchard for our offensive series. Just because we know with Marcus Smart, we're bound to, get a chuck up from the three. And he had a couple of possessions today that were definitely mind-boggling, but especially at the end of the game, just not finding the two best offensive players, but just calling his own number, going to the rim, trying to see if he could draw a foul. But luckily, we had 8 Mile on the squad who was able to, come in and follow up the shot. I'm going to give some props to the Miami Heat. Jimmy Butler just seems to come out and play every time he plays the Celtics. Same thing for Bam Adebayo. Bam is just dominant. And I love the Tristan Thompson signing, way more than Enes Kanter having a guard Bam. But Bam's just dominant, and he's going to be a threat to the Celtics for years to come. So props to the Miami Heat. I'm not entirely sure of their record, but I know at the end of the day that, when the playoffs do roll around, the Heat will be as big of a threat as any other team in the Eastern Conference. So yeah, those are my takeaways from tonight's game. I hope you enjoyed them. Again, please remember to comment on anything that you agreed with or you disagree with. I'm here for all the banter, all the trash talk. And before you go, please remember to subscribe and like this video to support a new channel. That's all I got tonight, guys. 1.